So here we arrive in the top three, Cam. I said I would link it to my box jellyfish story.
Yeah, I'm very interested how you're gonna do that.
Yeah. So we're talking about the top three this
Okay.
week is the top three tips that you and I have, Cam, for dealing with things that you don't see coming. That's
Okay.
our top three
Wow.
for this week. Because sometimes as student leaders, things happen that you simply cannot plan for. Opportunities
Yep.
or obstructions. It might be something positive that happens you weren't expecting. It might be an obstruction, something you didn't need to happen, but nonetheless it happens and you have to find a way to deal with it. So we have three tips.
3 tips.
that we
Okay.
wanna go
So
through.
these aren't 3 tips on how to avoid box jellyfish.
Not
or-
specifically, but perhaps you could use them in that application as well.
Okay, so these are more for student leaders.
More for
Excellent.
student
Okay.
leaders. Box jellyfish, probably just wear a wetsuit.
I mean,
There you go, you
hopefully
can have
they
that one
don't-
for free.
Hopefully they don't come to your school.
Hopefully there aren't too many box
Yeah.
jellyfish at your school. To
But
the
if
guys
they
up
are-
in Bowen, good on you for braving that. And further north, you guys are fantastic. All the best with that. Maybe they can write back to us with their top 3 tips on surviving
I like that.
saltwater
There
crocodiles
you go.
and box jellyfish.
Okay, there's a call out. If you're listening from Northern Queensland or anywhere that has box jellyfish and
Give us a
saltwater
call.
crocodiles.
We want to hear from you how to survive box jellyfish and saltwater crocodiles because, frankly, I'm terrified.
Okay, you've done your call out. Okay, excellent. Let's jump into
Let's
it.
jump
So
into our top
the
tips.
first way to avoid things that we aren't going to see coming.
Yeah, to deal
Yep.
with things that you can't
Deal.
see coming. My
Love it.
first tip is to ask for help early.
Okay,
Ask
explain.
for help early. And when I'm talking about this in a student leadership context, I am of course referring mostly to the fact that you need to be able to communicate with your teachers early. Because if things change or an opportunity arises and you haven't communicated to your teachers about what you want to do with that opportunity or that challenge, often you won't think of all the things you need to think of to make it happen logistically. I can remember coming up with some plans while I was at school as a student leader, and we would get all hyped up about it, really excited. We would go and have a student leadership meeting about it at lunchtime. We would all talk about it and have these kinds of conversations. And then we'd arrive, a week out, and the teachers would finally catch wind of what we were going to do, and they would go, no, but you haven't thought of this, this, and this, and you didn't think of the fact that this is happening this week, and therefore there's no time for you to be doing that. And so that was something that we didn't see coming, and we could have seen it coming if we had asked earlier about our plan, and we'd said to the teacher, we want to do this, but we're not sure if it's the best week to do it. Can you help us plan it? So it's important that student leaders realize that asking for help early isn't in fact not being a good leader, not being brave. It's actually a really wise thing to do, to be able to seek counsel earlier on and make sure that you've taken care of all the different things you need to take care of.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so you said, it's always great to plan. So that leads perfectly into our second point, which is to create a written plan.
Beautiful.
So creating a written plan is really important. And I think sometimes we get caught up when we're writing written plans and we think that it's going to have to be this big document that has like every single thing that's going to happen for this to work or every single fail safe. But what I want to propose, Caleb, is I reckon creating a written plan can be as simple as just writing a simple one-page document that outlines what's going to make whatever you're trying to set out to do going to be effective.
Brilliant.
So it makes sure that when those unforeseen things happen, when the things that you don't see coming happen, that you can look back at your plan and say, well, we didn't go into every specific, so we don't have to change too much of our plan. But how can we now change what we're doing to look at the plan? So having a written plan not only then gives you something to look at and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what's going to make our team effective. This is how we're going to be effective leaders. But it also then gives others confidence in what you're doing. They can see that you know what you're doing. They can see that you've got something written down. And so when those things do happen that are unforeseen, those things that people can't see coming, then they suddenly can look at the plan and say, hey, wow, our leader actually was thinking this before. Our leaders actually already thought about these things happening. And they've got some ways that they're going to now battle this to make sure that we're still an effective team, group. We still make an effective event.
Brilliant. Just having that written plan makes all the difference, especially when those things you don't see coming arise. And that leads us to point number 3, which is sort of linked to that as well. You mentioned if things come up, you need to be able to adjust.
Yep.
So our third point is to be flexible.
Awesome.
Because sometimes you just can't avoid it.
Yeah, no.
Things are going to need to change. And it's very important as a student leader that you are able to adapt in those scenarios. I can remember a time when I was in school, we wanted to create an artwork on a wall where we wanted all of the students to get some paint on their hand and stick it on the wall. and we'd gotten really excited about it. But then we found out there wasn't actually a good wall to be doing this on
no.
in our school, right?
Yeah.
So this idea that we'd had kind of got shot down, and we were like, oh no, what? That was our biggest thing for this year, you know. That was our big, amazing plan. But then we talked to our teachers, and they suggested that we actually get some hessian. We bring in some material, and that's what we could put the handprints on. So we had to be flexible in that scenario and take on that suggestion and be able to change our plan slightly. And you know what? It's actually worked out a whole lot better, because I go back whenever I go back to the school that I used to go to a few years ago, I can see that they still use that piece of artwork that we created.
That's awesome.
And they hang it up around different places in the school. Whereas if it had been on a wall, maybe they would have painted it over it by now. But because we were able to be flexible, the student leaders at my school, and come up with a plan B, we've created something that's had a lasting effect at the school, all because we were willing to be flexible in a situation where something we didn't see coming happened.
Excellent. Well, there are the top 3 ways of
dealing with something that you
something.
can't see coming, like a box jellyfish, perhaps.
I'll get it one day.
One day you'll get there.
Yeah, but deal with those box jellyfish and any other things that you can't see coming in leadership. There's the top 3 ways. It's got you laughing now, Caleb. You think about your box jellyfish.
I can't wait to hear from the North Queenslanders.
Anyways, let's jump into our next segment.
This segment is from an episode of the Student Leadership News Podcast. To listen to the full episode, go to studentleadership.news or subscribe using your favourite podcast app.